Hello, and welcome to the Real Estate Chicas talk show, special edition today on Tuesday, February 1st. We are going to talk about a really hot topic today. It's multiple offers and how to win in a multiple offer situation. I'm Jen Olmsted. I'm the owner of Olmsted Real Estate Group, and with me today,
Ana Montemayor. Hola a todos. Soy agente de bienes raíces de Homestead con Jennifer y bueno, estamos muy contentos el día de hoy de transmitir. Thank you everyone for being here. Hi, Jen.
hello, how's it going?
Good.
So we're going to talk about the market today. Basically, it seems like our spring market is here. I don't know if you've noticed that, but we've had a lot of multiple offer situations. A lot of our buyers are, ready to dive right in, especially with tax time right here. People are finding out how much their tax returns are, and they are ready to buy a house. So today, we're going to talk about that situation, the multiple offer situation, and some ways, tactics, and techniques that we can maybe assist you in being the winning offer, not necessarily making it so that you're offering extremely high over the asking price. That's something that we saw a lot in 2020, 2021 that carried on, but it does seem like the market is starting to level off in terms of price, not leveling off in terms of added inventory. That scared me. Sorry. So, so today we're going to talk about that. So Anna is basically, she's an expert buyer's agent. So she is working with lots of buyers, getting them started. I myself also work with a lot of buyers and sellers. So what I'm finding is everybody is prepping for that spring market. It is going to happen, I feel, much sooner than it usually does. Typically, we start to see a spring market in March, but I do feel that we are fully engaged in that right now. I would say in the last couple of weeks, we've had a lot of buyers come forward, say, what do we have to do? And we're getting people ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, I hope that spring market brings a little bit of spring weather too.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah. Well, before we continue, what about if we announce, so we give our viewers time to stick with us in the program and give them the surprise that we have for them? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so they have time to send us like information.
Yep, absolutely. So we have a fun giveaway. If you see our numbers right here, shoot us a text message with your email so that we can get you on our email chain, especially if you're thinking about buying a home within the next year or so. We're going to get you some tips and tricks on how to purchase a home, what to look for, things like that. We'll get you on our email chain. So if you shoot us a text with your name and email, we'll get you on that. And next week, we will announce a winner. They're going to get a day pass at iCryo, which is in Latham.
Yeah.
And if you haven't done it before, it's a ton of fun. Very relaxing, even though, the idea of like freezing your body sounds a little alarming. But it's a ton of fun, really good for you, lots of great health benefits. So send us a text message with your email and you'll get entered into that contest for next week. And next week we'll announce the winner.
Right. And you don't have just to freeze. They have infrared sauna too, so you can do other things than freezing as well.
Yep. They also have this like floating water bed where it just basically engulfs you and it feels like you're in the womb. That's what I say. It feels like you're in the womb. But it's very relaxing.
You were
there. And also then they also have the compression. So with the day pass, I think you get to choose three
services.
Okay.
And then they'll take you there. The staff in iCryo, Latham, they are the best. So send us your information. Make sure you put your email address to either Jennifer's phone number or my phone number, and we'll announce the winner.
Yep, absolutely. So make sure you do that. We'll talk about this again too right before we end the show today. But shoot us a text through email address, and we will enter you into the drawing for a day membership for iCryo.
Yes.
All right. So let's talk about multiple offers. There's a couple different ways that a multiple offer situation can happen, and it really is up to the seller how they want to navigate through that. So if you look at a house, sometimes multiple offers are the situation will be announced right as soon as it's listed. So sometimes an agent will post best and final due. They'll list the house on Monday and say best and final is due by Sunday at 5 o'clock. What does that mean? That means everybody has until Sunday at 5 to look at it and make their highest offer. Highest offer could be, it doesn't necessarily mean price. It's your best. It's whatever it is that you want to offer that seller. That's one way. Another way is when an agent receives two offers and the seller has not actually made a decision yet. Then you're in a multiple offer situation. At that time, they will announce multiple offers and give a bid deadline for best and final due at a certain time. So that's another way that it can happen.
So is that when you present an escalation clause, or when do you bring that in the process?
So the escalation clause, which is, definitely a negotiating tool that as buyer's agents we use, we're going to present that at the time of the best and final.
Okay.
So what is an escalation clause? That leads us into that question. What is an escalation clause? So an escalation clause is basically saying that the buyer is willing to pay, and you can pick the increment. The buyer is willing to pay $1,000 above your highest offer up to a certain point. So what will happen is the buyer might say, hey, I love this house and I'm willing to pay $20,000 over the asking price, but I don't want to if I don't have to. What are my choices? Well, that's when we'll do the escalation clause and we'll say, listen, seller, we will pay up to $20,000 over asking, but we only want to pay $1,000 above your highest price. The nice thing for the buyer is that they're not overpaying if they don't have to. So, if there's 3 offers and the highest offer is only $7,000 over the asking price, that home is now theirs for $8,000 over the asking price instead of the $20,000 that they would have paid. So it's a really great tool. It's kind of a nice little security for a buyer, because if you go $20,000 over, it might not appraise. It may be a price that it will make it difficult to sell the house in 5 years, things like that. So we're using the escalation clause. Now, there are some sellers who will not accept an escalation clause. So once in a while this is a great tool to have, once in a while, you'll have a listing agent notify everybody, escalation clauses will not be accepted. Your best and final has to be a solid number.
Mm-hmm.
When that happens, we cannot use an escalation clause. But it's a really great tool. You can even say 1,500 over your highest. You can say 2,000 over your highest.
So is this? I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Is this amount disclosed to the seller right at the beginning when you present your proposal, or is it after the first? After the hire.
Usually after your first offer comes in, that's when the agent will send an email out to everybody saying, hey, we have multiple offers. Your best and final is due. That's when you'll submit the escalation clause, because you may go up $5,000 in your price, but you want to let them know we're willing to go up to $20,000 in our price. This cat today, gosh,
he just wants to be there in the action.
Freaking me out. Anyways, so the escalation clause is going to go in when everybody's best and final is due. Now, the escalation clause can become tricky, because if you have 2 people who have escalation clauses in the mix, how do you decide whose you're going to take? Right. So sometimes it's that increment. So if one person said, I'll pay up to 20,000 over, and 1,000 over your highest, and the other person says, I'll pay 1,500 or 2,000 over your highest, now that puts that person above the other. If it ends up being 2 identical, sometimes a seller can go back to each of them and renegotiate. So they can say, okay, for example, let's say the house was 200, you're willing to go up to 220. We have 2 identical offers up to 220,000. Buyer A and buyer B, this is what we're asking. We'll either, if you are willing to do this, the house is yours. Mm-hmm. And they'll present that to both sides and see who takes the bait, if you will. So it's really just a way to put yourself in front of other offers and make it look like you're willing to pay, a certain amount. But there's some other tricks and tips that we can do as well. So the escalation clause and the price isn't necessarily always the deciding factor for the seller. Timing. Timing is a tool that we use a lot when we are working with multiple offers. I like to call the listing agent. I'll ask the listing agent, hey, why are your people selling? When do they need to move? You
Mhm.
know, do they already have a house? All of these things are really important because sometimes it's the closing date or the willingness to wait that will make it so that a buyer's offer is accepted over someone else. It might be worth it to a seller to accept an offer that's 5,000 less with a closing date that's 6 months out if they need to find a house because they're in the same position as the rest of the buyers that are
Right.
competing for their homes. So they need to be able to have that time. If they're relocating or looking for an apartment, right now rentals are incredibly hard to find. So, if they decide that they want to go into rental living 50 and over, let's just say, or something along those lines where there's senior living and there's a wait list, they might have to wait until that spot opens up and they need that time. If it's an estate and the home is full of things and they need to sort through all that, timing on the closing date is always important. I always ask that question for the listing agent to tell me so that we can plan accordingly and use that to our advantage. So if it's an investor, sometimes closing sooner rather than later. So getting pre-approved and having your numbers ready to go and your financing locked in is really important because I'll be able to reach out to your lender and say, hey, listen, making an offer, it's a flip house, it's multiple offers. How fast can you close this loan? If they say 45 days, I say, great. We put that 45-day mark in there, knowing that that is going to be appealing to an investor. Or like I said, if somebody already has a place to go and they need to close ASAP, that's important. Or if it's someone who needs more time, we take that into consideration. And sometimes that timing is something that can put you above the others.
Right.
Go ahead.
Would you recommend to do a escalation clause like all the time, or when is good to do it and when it's not? What are your
Multiple offers. So, I would do an escalation clause with multiple offers. Sometimes I've had people make an offer with the assumption that there's going to be multiple offers and do an escalation clause. What I'm going to be very upfront and honest is if I'm on the listing side of that and you send me an escalation clause, I'm going to try to get that top dollar, whether or not I have multiple
right?
offers or not. So if you come to me with an escalation clause and there's no other offers on the table, I'm going to say to you, and this actually happened in a situation where the house was listed at 250. They're willing to pay 275 with an escalation clause. And I said to them, hey, if you pay 275, we'll cancel all showings right now and the house is yours. And they went for it. So you don't want to necessarily submit an escalation clause prior to there being, multiple people looking at a home because it might make it so that it actually costs you more. Not
Yeah,
necessarily.
yeah. I think what you say is really key, and also I want to highlight when we are hired, we as a real estate agents, we represent the client. So if I represent the seller, then I disclose all my information to that seller, and I have completely loyalty and trust to, so they can trust me. Whatever. I'm not representing the buyer in that case. So if you give me some information, my first my first action will be go and discuss it with my seller. So you just gotta be aware of that when you are negotiating in which
Right.
state you are, right?
Right, exactly. And we do have, as agents in New York State especially, we have fiduciary responsibilities to our clients. So anything that is discussed, especially regarding finances, is kept confidential unless it's something that a buyer has asked or requested that I inform the other person of. So the selling side will never know the buying side's highest unless we are asked to disclose that in the escalation clause or best and final. But even if you were like, yeah, I want to offer 275, but I'd pay up to 300, I don't want to do that. Or let's just say you find a house that you love for 250, but you're pre-approved up to 500. If I went and told the listing agent that you qualify for way more, that's going to impact our negotiating leverage significantly. Because if they know that you can afford it, they're going to push that, you pay more for the house. So those are things that are kept confidential. Same thing with the seller. The seller's agent is not going to tell us the seller's bottom line. So, the selling agent can let us know, yeah, they have a place to go. No, they don't, things like that. But regarding the financial aspect of it, regarding motivation, things like that. They do not need to disclose that. And if they don't have permission from their client, they really can't. So, the conversation is really just to see if we can find out and discuss a strategy in advance. The other thing is that you see a lot of people doing, and I do not recommend this, is waiving home inspections and waiving appraisals. In my professional opinion, that is the riskiest thing that you can do. Unless you are a contractor, a home inspector, somebody who has been in the business, or maybe you've owned a home long enough to think that even at that point, I'm incredibly uncomfortable with the idea of buyers waiving home inspections, because there are things that home inspectors are trained to see, notify us of, look for, that we can't see. And just having that extra set of eyes and being able to actually back out if that's an issue that you weren't prepared for or that you don't have the finances for. Just having that option is really, really huge. Now, I've had people say, I want to have an inspection, but I'm willing to make it for informational purposes only. We're not anticipating any problems. We just still want to have a home inspector come through and put his eyes on it, and it's for informational purposes. But regardless, you still want to have a home inspection. You want to have a home inspector. It's a very terrifying thought, especially when there's homes that have well and septic, or our area, they're a lot older. Having those types of homes go without any sort of inspection at all is so incredibly risky. If a septic fails, that can be anywhere from a $5,000 to, I've seen on the upwards of $25,000 to fix.
Yeah, it's not a small expense.
Right. If you do not do a septic inspection, you will not know that septic is failing until it is in your basement, backed up, and a complete mess. And sometimes, you have to get an engineer involved. There's a lot of moving parts. And as a new homeowner, that's going to be something that will be incredibly stressful, eat up a lot of your reserves, if you have reserves. And if not, then you need to figure out how to pay that. But, having a home inspection, having a septic inspection, testing your water source, checking for radon, checking for mold. These are all things that are really, really important prior to owning a home, because you're going to want to know exactly what it is that you're taking on in that home, because it is going to be, for most people, they own a home 7 to 10 years for their first home, the next home even longer. So
you can prevent a lot by taking actions like that.
Right. Waiving the appraisal is also something that's very risky. So if the home doesn't appraise, you're basically saying, I will pay the difference. So I bought it for $220. It appraised for $200. Not only am I going to bring my down payment and the things that are required for the loan, but I'm also going to cover that difference. So you're basically claiming ownership to a home that you are purposely overpaying for.
So in that, that made me think about the loan mortgage, right? Because most of the people, you ask for a loan to acquire your house. What happens when you have these multiple offers and you apply the escalation clause? What happened with the mortgage that I was approved for, and then I have to pay a difference? What do I do then?
So if it doesn't appraise, or like you're only going to submit an offer based on what you're pre-approved for. So, you're not going to make an offer for $220 if you're not approved for $220,000. So when you submit your letter, your pre-approval letter from your bank is going to be for the highest amount that you're willing to pay, because you have that safety in there that says, I'm only going to pay $1,000 more than the highest offer. And usually what's also in that clause is the first page of that contract with personal information blocked out will be provided to the buyer's agent upon acceptance of the contract. So the buyer whose escalation clause has been accepted will actually have an opportunity to verify that, yes, in fact, I'm paying $1,000 over the highest offer.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of security, and really, it's a great sense of relief for a lot of people, because when there is a call for the highest and best, that's really nerve-wracking for a lot of people. How much people say, how much should I go? How high should I go? And the question is, how long are you going to live here? A, how much do you love it? Do you think you're going to be able to find something just as comparable down the road? Or do you think that this is it and there's not going to be anything that compares? If you're feeling like this is the house, fighting for it and making sure that you've paid the highest you're comfortable paying is really worth it. But, usually what we'll do is we'll pull a market analysis for you and let you know, hey, based on comps, this is really the highest you should be paying for it. Anything above that, just make sure you're comfortable with it. Make sure you know that, you want to be here long term, because the rates are still low, that in a mortgage, that difference isn't going to be huge because it's over a 30-year loan at, a little bit over a 3% interest rate. So when you finance that out, that's not huge. It's when you go to sell, and if our market is on a dip and you overpaid for it and now our market has naturally declined, what do you do and how do you make up the difference? That's a huge part of what happened in 2008. So I'm happy to see that some things are starting to level off. We're still in multiple offers right now due to lack of inventory, but it's not as crazy as it was. 50,000 over asking for our market, 60,000. I mean, those are some incredibly high numbers in a market where we average, the average price is 250 to 300,000. That's a high number.
I'll say that, well, we always say in this show, and everyone, like, trust you, the people that is helping you, because you not all the time is the best idea to offer, do an escalation clause. You gotta see what's your environment, if that neighborhood has a potential to grow, how is the surroundings, and that's why we're here for. We can do that study for you, we can research that for you, so you say, like, you know what, this is worth it, I will put this more in my offer. And sometimes it's not worth it, so you need to know, and you need to trust the people that you work with to make that step or stay where you are,
Right. And it is tough because when there's multiple offers, you have very little time to make a decision. Sometimes we're in that house for a half hour, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, because there are people waiting for their turn to go in through the house as well. So it is really nerve-wracking and super important that you allow us to do our homework ahead of time, go in, answer your questions, because you basically have that one showing and then you need to make a decision if you're going to move forward or not. So that's not really a lot of time to get to know the house, know the issues, know the things that need to be fixed. And that's also why a home inspection is incredibly important. It's that second peek. You're there for 2 hours. You can look around, really understand the house, things like that, and, go from there. So having all of that and having, like you said, having your team there to help. And especially I'll tell people to run numbers ahead of time. If this is the house and you're really excited to see it, talk to your loan officer before we go. Have them send the pre-approval so it's locked and loaded. And if we do make an offer, send a couple different letters so that we have one to choose from if we decide we're going to go higher or be competitive or things like that. But having all of that up front is really, really important.
So who writes these multiple offers and this escalation clause? Who do I go to?
So the buyer's agent will write the escalation clause into the offer. Okay. So
I don't need an attorney to do it.
You do not need an attorney to do it. Once the contract's accepted and signed, it does go to an attorney for review. But that escalation clause at that point is no longer really relevant because of the fact that it's already been accepted and signed. So that's just kind of like an additional addendum. It's kept separate. It's, submitted with their best and final offer.
Do you have any horror stories in this field? Anything that, oh my God, went so bad?
Well, in terms of the escalation clause, no, but I've had a few agents say, listen, we're not doing an escalation clause, submit your best and final. So I do sometimes have to go back to my more conservative buyers and say to them, the seller is not accepting escalation clauses. So we need you to go in with your best and final, and we're going to submit that. And then what'll happen is, we'll just go from there. The biggest thing is I let everybody know if it's meant to be, it will be. And, I know that when you find a house that you absolutely love, it's something that, you become emotionally connected to and things like that. So when we're in a multiple offer situation and you know that there's other people who love that home just as much as you do, it becomes really, really challenging. And for some buyers, it's heartbreaking. I read a statistic that in 2021, the average home buyer submitted offers on 2 homes before the third one was actually accepted. So that means most buyers out there missed out on 2 different homes, and then home number 3 was the home that, right. But I would challenge that in our local market because I have some buyers, we've made so many offers and they're trying so hard because they just have that goal and dream of home ownership that it stems beyond 3 offers. but it's just the way that our market is, and there's just no inventory. So, it's just one of those things that we just have to. That was from Jason. Jason Given just gave us a shout out, but you really have to just know the market, keep the faith. When it's all supposed to work out, it will. And you just have to keep trying and putting yourself out there. I've had buyers say that they're going to take a break. They take a break, then they come back. Then we look at some homes. And a couple of my buyers this year said, "This is my year." Like, "Jen, you've been with us for 2 years. This is the year we are going to buy a home." So I do believe that we're going to see more inventory sooner rather than later. And I am going to make it a personal goal for my buyers to make sure that they do get a home. But biggest thing is to make sure that you're on an updated and accurate MLS search with one of us, because you're going to be sent the listing as soon as it hits the market. If there's a price change or anything along those lines, it's going to be sent to you prior to hitting Zillow, truly on realtor.com. Sometimes it's hours, sometimes it's a day. So, people ask me, how come this house on Zillow is already pending? It's because as agents, we already saw that on the MLS and we got in there right away and get our offer right away. So this is a market that you unfortunately do not get to sit and think.
And don't get discouraged if you didn't make it to that. Like Jennifer said, there's always a house for everyone. Just take time. It takes time, patience, and if you want to buy a house, just make sure that you got a plan like 6 months in advance to move there. If you're renting and you got to buy, well, plan 6-7 months in advance to start looking and starting your process.
Right, absolutely. So if people are thinking about buying this summer, we really want to talk to you now, get you lined up with a loan officer, know your budget, know what you need to do. If there's anything that you need to do in order to buy at that time, get that ready now so that when we do find your house, you're ready to move right away. Some people will find the house first and then they want to work backwards, and then that can cost them time and an opportunity to even make an offer. So do the planning, do the work, reach out to us. I just had coffee with a new buyer in this market the other day, and she just wanted to know the steps. She said, "Tell me what I need to do in order to get ready. I'm in a lease until November, but I want to line myself up and tell me what to expect." So what I did was we got her in touch with a loan officer. We got her pre-approved. Then we talked about the market and the area that she's looking at and what realistically her price point would be and what the monthly payments look like. And then we broke down, her closing costs and how much money she'd have to bring to the table so that now she's prepared. There's a lot of extra things that you don't think about, like the cost of the appraisal, paying for the home inspection, a good faith deposit. There's a lot of moving parts. And the more that you know about the process, the easier it will be. It's supposed to be fun and exciting. And the one thing I'll say is that when somebody does not know the process, it's stressful and scary. And that is not what we want to see when you're purchasing a 6-figure investment.
Right. Yeah.
So, but okay, so we're going to remind everybody that if you shoot us a text with your email, you'll be entered into a drawing for iCryo, which we will announce the winner next week on our Real Estate Chicas talk show.
Yes. So for everyone, para todas allá afuera, lo que estamos haciendo, si vives en Albany, en esta región, tenemos porque puedo tener gente que me ve desde México, ¿no? Desde donde soy. Tenemos un pase para iCryo y vamos a rifarlo. Si nos mandas tu correo electrónico a nuestro teléfono que está aquí abajo, lo vamos a anunciar la próxima semana.
All right.
Leave the message in Spanish. So if anyone is there, or if you want to buy a house, if you're a Spanish speaker and feel more comfortable, te sientes más a gusto hablando en español, por favor, llámame. Aquí está mi número o escríbeme un correo y aquí estoy para servirte.
All right. Well, we'll see you here for all your questions. Feel free to reach out to us. If there's any topics you want us to discuss, we are more than open to discussing things that, our clients and the people watching want to see and hear. So shoot us a message. Let us know what topics we could cover for you. And we'll see you next week.
See you next week. Thank you, Jennifer.
Adios.
Yeah, adios.